Wait, J.R.R. Tolkien was right? Do you remember The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the new Amazon Lord of the Rings? What if Middle-earth wasn't fantasy? What if it was real human history? Think back, do you remember the March of Progress? Boom, 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 they taught you in school? Forget about it. 50,000 years ago, there was at least 7 to 9 human species roaming the earth. 50,000 years ago, humans, Homo sapiens, shared the earth with at least 7 other human species. We had Neanderthals, Homo florensis, which they nicknamed the Hobbit. Come on. And scientists didn't find the Denisovans from one skull. They mapped the entire genome from a tiny pinky they found in a Siberian cave using AI to find the missing DNA sequences. In fact, humans still carry all of this DNA from all of these different species. But it gets weirder and spookier. Ghost DNA is real. Geneticists, scientists have found massive amounts of DNA that do not belong to humans, Denisovans, Neanderthals, any of us. What is this DNA? They are called, wait for it, ghost lineages. So the most fantastic story of miracles and Middle-earth hobbits and dragons is lying not in the ground, but inside your DNA, walking around with you, inside of you. Ancestors that we have in our DNA, but we have zero record of. Our tiny planet was once Middle-earth, home to many different human species. They met, competed, fell in love, had children together. Check out what Ella, one of my favorite new scientists, has to say, an expert, a scientist in the field.
We don't know, but many.
Many.
So I often describe that period as a world of many, because we just think around the globe there were many, many different species of human.
Yeah.
And we're not really sure how many. We have current estimates, but also it depends who you talk to. I would say contemporaneous with us, there was probably about 7 other species, so I like to think of us maybe as the Magnificent 8. I would be shocked if that turns out to be the final number.
So you think that maybe that is what we have evidence for, is what you're saying. So there may be others that haven't left evidence behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just Hakim, if you think about that, right? So that means that our ancestors were walking around and occasionally bumping into another species of human. So let me map out the world, right?
Yes.
So you've got Homo sapiens, right? We're in the mothership. We're in Africa at this point when we start, right? In Africa, we think there were probably 2 other species. Homo heidelbergensis was probably still hanging around. And then there was this small species called Homo naledi in South Africa.
Right.
And Homo naledi is fascinating because Homo naledi had a smaller brain and yet we think was burying their dead.
Yeah, I saw that result. I saw that, yeah.
It's supposed to be big brains.
Right.
Big ideas, right?
Right. Yeah.
Burying your dead is a big idea. Okay, so that's Africa.
Yes.
Right?
Right. 2 species. in
2
Africa.
species.
Yes.
Okay.
Minimum.
Yeah, I'm going to throw in a wild card in a second, but we'll get there.
All right.
Then you've got Europe and into Asia. I'm talking like
West Asia or?
West Asia, Iran, up to
Yes.
Iran, that kind of area, parts of Siberia. You've got the Neanderthals, right? Then you've got East Asia. I'm talking India, out east to the rest of Asia. You've got a species called the Denisovans, which is worth also talking about. And then you've got these islands. And on the islands, there's this one island called Flores in Indonesia where you've got Homo floresiensis, which we nicknamed the Hobbit.
Yeah, the 3-foot tall ones.
Yeah, but we're talking about a species of human with the brain the size of the brain of a chimpanzee. So it's the same size brain, and yet they're actually making actual stone tools. So stone tools which require certain kinds of cuts and which are used for very specific purposes. That is a much more advanced form of tool making than any chimpanzee.
So what you're saying, in essence, is there's something about this human brain, even across all these different human species, that's kind of independent of brain size, that there was some innovation in the brain that allowed it to think thoughts that no one else was thinking?
I think what we're realizing is size is important, but it's clearly not as important as we thought it was. It's more likely to be brain organization that's important. And so the fact that these small-brained humans were doing them, you're like, okay, this challenges what it means to be human. This also challenges, what's going on, our kind of perceived notion of what's going on in our brains. But I haven't even finished, by the way, our little tour de force of,
that's
of
right.
the world.
That is true.
Hold on. Keep staying with me, right? So, hold on. So we got to the islands. So the island in Indonesia. Then there's another island, but this time in the Philippines, where there's another, we think, small-statured human, but we're just not 100% sure they're small-statured. Homo luzonensis is the name given to that species. Yeah. And so you've got that. You've got the hobbits. The Homo floresiensis, and then we think in parts of the Far East, Homo erectus was still around, and Homo erectus is this really famous species because it was incredibly successful. So they were around for like 2 million years,
right.
And we think that they were probably an ancestor of ours and more likely to be a grandparent as opposed to a parent of ours. And the fact that you've got the grandparent still hanging around when we're around, again, that image of the descent of man it's just. It is
not
it's
linear.
So much more complicated. Yeah. I think it's so much more interesting. But here's where, for me, it gets even more interesting, right? So again, when I started about 20 years ago, we kind of thought, all right, this is how many species there are. And maybe they'll find a few more, but really contemporaneous with us at the same time as us. And it was us and the Neanderthals.
Right. That's the standard.
Yeah. That's, idea. And most people in their heads kind of, that seems acceptable. And then they found the hobbit species. And let me tell you, it was such a shocking find. Partly because it was also around the same time that Lord of the Rings was, so it kind of really captured people's imagination, but mostly because it was like, no, you can't get a human at that period, because this is quite late now in the, this isn't like when we first started 2 million years ago. This is much more recent. You can't get a human with a short stature and a tiny brain and slightly primitive feature. It's just not happening. Like it was so controversial. There were practically throwdowns in some academic meetings. Basically, people would be really kind of trying to be polite, but very angry, shall we say?
So it's sort of like, how could you be so dumb?
Yeah,
I'm going to punch you in the face.
No, it was honestly, it was people were like, no, these people had, it's one individual. This person had microcephaly. This person was diseased. It's an anomaly. This is not a whole species. Do not be insane. Like this is crazy talk. And I remember, I was pretty young and I was just like, oh my God, this is so shocking. Like, because when that hobbit was found, it's kind of ushered in this era of like, oh my, we are potentially looking at the tip of the iceberg of how many humans were out there.
Right.
And yes, lo and behold, like every few years, a new species was found.
Pause. Do not miss the next part. It gets crazier.